So, as we've touched on earlier, wrestling, even though it's not a real fight.
Don't say the F word.
No, I wouldn't. It's not a real fight.
That fake word.
But it is very hard on the body.
Oh, God, yes.
Have you ever been injured severely?
Severe? Oh, yeah. See, injuries come a dime a dozen in this business. If you're not getting injured, I'm not saying this is something you should shoot for, but if you're not getting injured, you're not really wrestling much then. But no, but a severe injury, that you want to avoid, and there was one time I did not avoid that. No, there was actually a time where I nearly died inside the ring, and oh yeah, and actually, I wrote a book. I wrote 2 books on my wrestling career. This is the book here. This is my first book. This is my book on getting into the wrestling business. Luscious, the story of the 4-time NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Rocky Reynolds. In this book, the crux of this book is me breaking into the wrestling business, but then once I broke in, when I nearly died. Inside the ring.
You nearly died.
Yes. Yep.
You have to tell us about it.
Oh, yeah. Well, of course, when you're younger, I'm certain most of us, if not all of us, go through it. Invincibility.
Invincible.
Yep. We can do whatever we want. Now, I grew up in a time when I was a little kid. I'm talking like around 11, 12. I was watching the more cartoon-like WWF. Where, Demolition, Axe and Smash, like I had mentioned, I love them. You had the Junkyard Dog, the Rockers, Hulk Hogan, Andre the Giant was still alive then. Wrestling, these were the guys that I was a little kid watching. But as I got older, I got into my teenage years, wrestling took an awesome turn. A turn that would never come back again. And wrestling will never peak the way it did then, was the Monday Night Wars. Here's a fact. I bet most wrestling fans actually do not know this. Right now, the amount of fans watching wrestling on television right now is only 1/10 of what was watching them during the Monday Night Wars.
That's amazing.
Yes, that's how much wrestling has declined. But the peak of professional wrestling was the Monday Night Wars. There will never be a time where it's that watched. Never. Because I should never say never, but it's like retiring in professional wrestling. Never say never. Terry Funk's retired 17 times or so, But
I used to have the phone number for the Double Cross Ranch. And
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, you don't still have it, do you? We'll have to call and prank them.
I can't. I was,
No, we couldn't do that to poor Terry.
I was trying to find it a while ago, and I couldn't find it.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. No. Yeah. No. Terry's one of the nicest guys.
Yeah.
Nicest guy. Although when you saw his character, you wouldn't think so.
Yeah.
But that's probably Mick Foley's the same way.
Yeah.
And that's probably why Mick and Terry. Well, Mick of course idolized Terry for years. Oh, but so. Oh, I'm trying to remember where I was left off here. Talk about the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah.
So when I'm watching the Monday Night Wars, that was when WCW competed against WWE. You had the millionaire, Vince McMahon, competing against the billionaire, Ted Turner. Now, no one could touch Vince McMahon in the wrestling industry. When he came along, before he came along, wrestling was only in territories, broken into different territories nationwide. There was a promoter for every territory, and it was an unwritten rule: you never encroached upon another territory's territory. It was a respect thing. But you had some outlaw promotions that would come into another territory's or another federation's territory and try to run a show. And when that happened, you would have other territories that were friends with the original territory send their best wrestlers there to put on even a bigger show to make sure they pushed that outlaw one out. But whole thing was you never encroached. Everyone had their own certain territory, and that was that person's. Until Vince McMahon came along. When Vince McMahon came along, he wanted to take it national. He wanted to not have just one spot where he only ran on the East Coast or down south in Texas. He was going to run nationwide. And when he did that, he broke the golden rule of encroaching on different territories. This made him the most hated promoter in professional wrestling amongst all the other promoters. But Vince came in, he did it, he succeeded and killed the territories off, and he became national. No one could touch him, and no one was able to touch him until Ted Turner came. Ted Turner, who was nothing more than a billionaire who owned some cable broadcast stations, of course, TBS. Yep. And TNT was his too, I believe, right? Because that's what WCW ran off of, because he owned it. So, he all of a sudden saw how popular wrestling had become with Vince McMahon. He always respected wrestling. back when he started, when he wasn't a billionaire, and he first launched TBS, he had to find programming that was cheap to keep people watching, but didn't cost so much because he didn't have much money when he first started out. Wrestling was what he put on, which was NWA, the territory down there, which was the Georgia territory. Over time, it changed to Georgia Championship Wrestling, but it was still NWA, but their branch of it was Georgia Championship Wrestling. So Ted Turner has always respected professional wrestling, and he said no matter what, professional wrestling will always have a home on his station networks because they were there when he started out and they were there when he was huge. So because of that, he wanted to make wrestling even bigger once he gained his billions of dollars. So he then he took Georgia Championship Wrestling and changed the name to WCW. And he hired Eric Bischoff, who was nothing more than a show host and a commentator for his wrestling show, Georgia Championship Wrestling. Well, when he needed a executive to run it, Eric put in, and he sat down with Eric, and he's the one that got hired, and that shocked everybody. No one thought that this guy that was just a commentator was going to be able to do much. Well, as soon as he was hired, Ted Turner wanted to have a meeting with Eric Bischoff. He calls him in, the whole board's there, and Ted says to him, "What do you need to compete with the WWE?" And this took Eric by surprise. He didn't know what to think. He said, well, I'm going to need primetime television. He said, okay, you've got 2 hours on Monday nights running the same time that Raw is. That wasn't expected. That wasn't planned. He asked him what he needed. Eric just said, I needed broadcast television. Ted said, okay, I want you on the same time in this primetime hour. So now he gave him pretty much an unlimited checkbook too to go get what he needed to get. So what's he do? He acquires Hulk Hogan, the biggest name in professional wrestling, who, even though it had been decades he'd been a star, he still had drawing power. He gets the Macho Man. He already has Flair. He already has Sting. He just starts bringing all these legends from WWE. And then the biggest thing that really kicked it off, that launched it, they went head-to-head ratings. WWE was still winning the ratings war, and WCW really couldn't compete with them. And they were going at the same time every Monday night for 2 hours. Now you had your WWE fans, you had your WCW fans. Well, now, all of a sudden, Razor Ramon Scott Hall, who was a huge star in WWE, all of a sudden appears on WCW. This wasn't planned. He was just last week on WWE. And he doesn't come out of the rampway, out of the locker room. He comes out of the crowd. And everyone knows who this guy is. He is from the WWE. He jumps in the ring with a match going on. And he doesn't care. He just steps right in the center of the ring and the match stops. And these guys are like, who is this guy? And he gets on there. Now, Eric Bischoff, for the last few weeks, has been on the air taking shots at the WWE. And a golden rule is you don't mention the competition during your show. No, Eric, some of the best stuff Eric did. This was all groundbreaking. He would get on there and he would talk about, one of the things he did is Nitro was live. Raw was taped. He would go on and say, listen, you don't need to watch Raw because the main event tonight is Triple H versus Mick Foley, and Mick Foley wins. For us.
I remember that.
He'd give away their finishes. Now, that actually backfired on him because he did it one time where Mick won the title, and everyone turned over to watch Mick win the title. But he did that a few different times. Or he brought Medusa, who was WWE's champion. He bought her, or her contract expired, he brought her over while she was a champ. And on television, she stands there with a wastebasket and the WWE belt and throws it away. I mean, he was doing all this stuff. But because of that, Scott Hall now comes out, gets in the ring. He comes out of the crowd. He gets on the mic and says, whoa, you want a war? You keep talking trash? And he's not saying he works for WCW. He's still giving the implication, I'm from the WWE. They sent me here. He never said that, but he was giving that, making you believe that's why he's there. You want a war? You're going to get one. Well, then so he said he's going to come back next week with a surprise. Well, all of a sudden, now Diesel shows up. Kevin Nash. Wait a minute, what the heck? And they are going after Eric Bischoff. Hey, we are from a place up north. They wouldn't say WWE. They say up north. And everyone knew what they were talking about, and they wanted to give that impression. And you get three of your best, and if you want to start talking trash, let's do it where it matters, in that ring. You think that you're the better wrestling? company, then you get 3 of your best, and we want them in that ring. So, Eric says, listen, I'll go to, I don't know if I can do it, but I'm going to be at Ted Turner's office building tomorrow in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'll see if I can get that match. I'm going to try to get it for the Great American Bash, blah, blah, blah. He comes back to that next week. It is booked. They're like, okay, great. So it's Sting, Macho Man, and I forget who the third one was. Third one was, or they even had a third one. But it was Sting and Macho Man versus Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. Diesel and Reyes Ramon, everybody thought. So, they're fighting and they're winning the match. And they are jumping and beating up the Macho Man. Well, who comes out? The hugest star in WCW now, who was the biggest star in WWE, Hogan, in the red and yellow. The place is exploding. And he's going to take these 2 bad guys from the other company out. He gets in there and does the unthinkable. He turns heel. And he joins them. I was a kid, I was a teenager, and I was ecstatic. It was a cool thing to see Hogan go heel. No one saw it, no one thought it, but because of that, people who weren't watching wrestling were now entranced. They were hearing about this. And everybody started tuning in, seeing this fight between 2 companies on Monday night. Which one was better? And because of that, caused Vince McMahon to create the Attitude Era. And with the Attitude Era came more risky stuff, where you weren't getting these cartoon characters anymore. Hunter Hearst Helmsley, a Blue Blood, was now gone, and Triple H was now coming out. I mean, you were just getting real-looking bad boys. You didn't have good and bad anymore. You had bad and worse. Yeah. And when you get to that, let's go with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Here's a guy who came out, he never smiled, he ran his mouth, he talked trash, he drank beer, he flipped the crowd off, he beat his boss up, and they loved him. And I loved him. It was great. That's why wrestling will never be again what it was. They'll never capture that. Wrestling right now is a circus act. It's a bunch, I'm not meaning to be hypocritical because I'm not a very big guy. 5'7", just under 200 pounds now. That's about what I was wrestling at. But and WWE and WCW were the lands of the giants, huge guys. That's what you have now is nothing but these little guys. And even when they do, the storylines, they suck. There's no stories. I'd also add
very, very uninteresting personalities.
Very much so. Yeah, because, even though the cartoon characters were gone, you still had characters. You don't got many characters now. You have a few, but they're not really characters. They're all a cookie cutter. They're all the same looking kind of guy.
Yeah. I mean, I got to tell you, I think Hulk Hogan is the best thing that ever happened to professional wrestling. Mm-hmm. And when he was on the mic, the way it was just unbelievable.
Yes.
Oh brother, we're gonna surf up to the planet Pluto, and we're gonna come back crashing and banging.
Well, growing up, I couldn't stand Hulk Hogan. I hate him because I hated the good guys. I was a heel lover, and because he was the wholesome American pie fighting for the red, white, and blue, I hate patriotic gimmicks. Still to this day, I hate the patriotic gimmick. I'm patriotic, but as far as wrestling goes, I think it's a cheap pop. But I hated that. When I became older, I got into the wrestling business. I started to learn what draws and what doesn't. I respected Hulk Hogan so much for his charisma. He was a guy, he could talk him in.
Yeah.
Now, that stuff I didn't know when I was a kid. Bret Hart, couldn't stand him. He bored me. He wasn't very charismatic, I didn't think.
Yeah, I agree.
Then I got into professional wrestling, started to have to train. He's the greatest guy to ever watch actually execute moves. He called himself the excellent of execution. It's the truth. The guy was so crisp, so perfect. As I got older, I learned to respect guys I didn't like growing up because I knew what it really took. Another guy I couldn't stand. He was a boy toy. Shawn Michaels. Well, I couldn't stand him. Then you learn that he's probably one of the greatest in-ring performers to ever live. All right, now let's get back to the severe injury.
There you go.
Okay, now there's a reason I went on this big long tangent in that. Because when I broke into professional wrestling, the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars had just ended. So now this is the standard I know. This is the standard I love. This is what I need to go to. Now I knew I wasn't a very big guy. And Rey Mysterio was who I was thinking, I got to become a style like that. Almost luchador, high flying, if I was going to be able to make it. Now, side note again, I did a show with Rey one time and took a picture. I figured we were about the same height. Nope. I'm short. He's midget-like. And the picture hangs on my wall of fame of my wrestling stuff, and top of his head comes to the top of my shoulders. And when they say Rey's small, he is small. I figured we were the same height. Nope. I tower him, and that's shocking. But, okay, so I get into wrestling, and I'm studying different things I want to learn, different moves I want to learn. Well, to create a finishing move, I always believed you need to have a ground move for a finishing move, a submission move, and a top rope move. And if I could always use a top rope move, I wanted to use that. I loved a top rope finishing move. It just built more anticipation to me. Macho Man, when he would get up there, come off with the flying elbow and that. I love the top rope stuff. There was a new tag team when I broke into professional wrestling in the WWE. These guys, they were crazy. The one was more crazier than the other. They were known as the Hardy Boys, Jeff and Matt Hardy.
Oh, yeah.
And Jeff was the crazier one. He had a finishing move I had never seen called the Swanton Bomb. Now it's duplicated quite a bit now, but then it was totally new, where he went on the top rope, he dove off, and he literally hovered upside down as he floated across the ring. At the last second, he would do a flip and land his back across his opponent, who laid flat and prone on his back in the center of the ring. I thought, God, if I could duplicate that move, that's awesome. So I had when I was training, I went and bought my own ring from the NWA, drove down to West Virginia, bought it, brought it up, put it in my parents' front yard, left it erected for a year, and trained in it constantly. But I'd get on the top rope, I'd have mats down and work on doing that flip. And that's what I finally perfected. That became my finishing move, the Swanton Bomb. Well then, after my first year in the business of that, doing it, I got good at it off the top rope. Well, of course, now Jeff Hardy's doing it off 20-foot ladders. From 8 foot to 12 foot, even at WrestleMania, 20-foot ladder. It's like, whoa, what if I could do that? And I'm invincible. Let's go back to, I'm coming back, I made that turn, come back to the road. Invincibility, this is where I screwed up. I don't want to say screw up, but I was willing to take a risk that I hadn't got quite perfected yet. Well, I don't want to say quite perfected, I thought I had, but...
You had it perfected from the top
rope. Top rope.
Yeah.
And I had done it off ladders too, inside the ring. Well, here, I'll go to what this was. It was the NWA 53rd Anniversary Show. It would have been back, I believe, in 2003, I think, maybe? Yeah, because I just got married. This actually took place 2 months after I was married. My wife is sitting front row at this too. The NWA Anniversary Show is held every year. It's where the NWA was still in different territories, and the territories met every year, put on one huge show, and they sent their best talent. Every territory sent their best guy. I was representing NWA Tri-State at that time. So I was putting in the main event, which was a 4-way ladder match for the NWA World Junior Heavyweight title. When we're in the back getting ready for it, we're going to close out the show. And, there's legends, there's stars on this show, and we're closing it out. So I knew we had to make sure this match followed best of everything. And there were so many promoters there. WWE was definitely has eyes that are watching these shows. They definitely do. I had to do something to be remembered. Oh, I did, but not the way I meant to. So I knew I had to do something crazy, or what I felt was crazy. My mindset would be different now because I'm older and wiser, but I had to do something crazy to be noticed because that was the style then. The Attitude Era just ended kind of thing. So in the match, I set up a spot where during it, the match is a ladder match. The belt's hanging from the rafter. First guy to put the ladder up, climb it, get to the rafters, pull the belt down and wins. Yay! So during the match, I throw all 3 of my opponents to the outside floor. Now there's no crash pads. There's no pads on the floor. The floor is just a hard, solid tile floor. So rather than, which this had no psychology whatsoever, rather than putting the ladder up and climb it to go get the title, I break psychology. I put the ladder up over on the corner of the ring, and I start climbing it. And it's a 12-foot ladder. And my opponent's on the outside floor. Well, I'm going to do a swanton off that ladder from inside the ring to the outside floor. So I climb up the top of the ladder. Now, I hate heights. Always have. I'm not a heights guy whatsoever. Rocky Reynolds, when I go into Rocky Reynolds mode, heights don't bother me. It's weird. It's a psychological thing. But I'm invincible when I'm Rocky Reynolds. I can't be hurt. So I climb to the top of the ladder. Now I'm 12 foot on the ladder in a race probably 3 foot high too, looking out, and 15 feet up, and I'm about to jump a little bit higher too. It's a long ways down. I'm Rocky Reynolds, but I thought, wow, that's ways down there. I knew I can't go back down now. We have to do it. So, told the ref to hold the ladder. I've climbed. I'm perched. I'm doing my whole thing. I jump, and that's all I remember. Next thing I know, I'm waking up, and it's kind of fuzzy, and I hear people on the sides of me saying, "You're going to be okay, Rocky. You're going to be okay." And I didn't know what to think of that. Then I lost consciousness again. I wake up again, and I'm being moved, and I'm on my back. and I can hear the crowd, and I'm strapped in. I'm on a gurney. I had no idea. Well, and as I'm going out, I knew right there. I seen what was going on. Something went wrong. I didn't know what. I didn't know what was going on, but the crowd was there. And being the entertainer like I like to be, I put my arms out to the side of the gurney and started doing this, which is my Rocky Reynolds thing. And the place went crazy. Lost consciousness again, gone. Woke up again, and I'm coming to. I'm just been loaded in the ambulance now, and I can hear my promoter saying, "Rocky, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna be okay." That's it. Out again. Next thing I know, I wake up, and I'm just laying there, and the ceiling is white, the walls are white, and it's quiet. I have no idea what's going on. Well, and I can't hear nothing. All of a sudden, sound starts to come back, and I can hear crying. I look over in the corner. Across the room is my wife of 2 months. My wife now of over 18 years, but 2 months new. She's over sitting in a chair by herself crying. We're in a room by ourselves. And I don't know what's going on. And I look and I pick my head up, and I see my wrestling gear. And I remember, oh yeah, I was wrestling. Why am I here? Where am I? Remember, I sat up and there's a mirror on the wall there. I turned and looked, my face was dry crimson mask. Wait a minute.
Tell everyone what a crimson mask is.
Oh, crimson mask is when you bleed and your face gets covered in blood. So when I woke up, I looked into the mirror and I was all dry blood down my face. And it all started coming back to me. I said, wait a minute, I was in a ladder match. I was wrestling. Something went wrong. I didn't know what. So, no. Before I sat up and saw that, I was laying down before I sat up and saw my face, and I remembered I was in a wrestling match. And I thought, uh-oh, is there something wrong? First thing I was worried about, am I paralyzed? And I wiggled my fingers and toes. And everything moved. I said, okay, I'm good. Then I sat up and looked in the mirror. And when I looked and I saw the dry blood, I knew I was fine. I couldn't remember what took place. I started laughing. That's just how I am. I sat there, I said, oh boy. And my wife now knows I'm conscious. She turns, and I look at her, and I'm laughing. What'd I do? And she goes, you fell. And she's crying while she's telling me this. And I just started laughing. I said, how bad? She goes, it was bad. And then the doctor comes in. They see I'm conscious now. They're talking to me, and they're telling me about how lucky I am. I didn't snap my neck, nor caved in my skull from the height of the fall I took. They said I jumped from the ladder. I spiked head first onto the hard tile floor, which is concrete underneath that. I peeled back my scalp. I lost 2.5 pints of blood. They put 13 staples in to seal my head up. And all that they could think is just a credit to years of lifting, shrugs, stuff like that. Or I figured the shrugs. They said working out, keeping your neck strong. I assume doing shrug work, stabilized my neck when I spiked, and didn't cause my neck to break. And I said, oh, okay, and I'm fine. I'm going, okay, we're cool. And of course I'm still kind of chuckling because I'm not taking it seriously. I'm thinking this is how professional wrestling is. It happens. I'll probably do worse later. So, and I always laughed about it. We stayed at a friend's house that night. They didn't want me driving all the way home. The friend kept coming in every 2 hours to check me, make sure I didn't go into a coma, because they were worried about that. I had to keep being checked on. Reality hit. It was probably about a month later. I'm at home, and a copy of the DVD comes to my house. So now I can finally see it. I haven't got to see it yet. I pop it in the DVD. I hit play. I'm watching it. And I do the dive, I land, and I'm sitting there, I'm still laughing, because I know I'm fine. I'm laughing like, oh geez, what an idiot. And I'm just kind of chuckling. Here's where reality hit. There's a crowd swarmed around me. And all of a sudden, like they say, the sea begins to part. And I'm looking, why is everyone moving? Here's a girl guiding my wife in. And when she looks down, it's a pan back shot. She immediately turns and begins to scream and bawling. That hit me. Oh, shoot. It wasn't about me again. There's where I got selfish. Well, I don't want to say selfish, but I need to learn not to be selfish, because now I'm not a lone wolf now. I'm 2 months married. It hit me. And I've always been like that. I get it. I'm a committed kind of guy, no matter what it is, whether it's training, wrestling, marriage, whatever. I now know she's on this journey with me. So whatever I do is going to affect her now, too. Crap, I better get more smart here. So, but what caused me to not be caught right? When I watched it the first time, I just watched and see how I landed that whole thing. I don't mean to point blame anywhere. Obviously I'm saying that because I'm about to. But ultimately it's my fault. I did the move. I called it. I decided to jump. I jumped. That's my call. Here's where it went wrong though. When I put the ladder up, I turned to the ref. I said, hold this. The ref did. He went there and he held the ladder. As I go up, I'm watching and I'm trying to see, because what takes place is when I push off, I don't get out far enough out to him. I go almost straight down. And they tried diving out to catch me. They couldn't get there in time. I thought, what the heck caused me to not make the distance? I just went straight down. So I rewound it again, and I'm watching, and I put it in slow motion. As I push off, the whole ladder flies back. It kicked out. So no, I told the ref to hold it. And I'm looking, I go back and watch, and the ref puts a ladder. He puts his foot up on the rung, up in the front, like they're shown, so it can't kick out.
All right.
Well then, as I'm watching it, as I push off, the ladder still kicks out. I said, what the heck's going on here? Here's what I caught. As I go back, he put his foot on and put all of his weight on his back leg, not on the foot that was on the front rung. So when I pushed off, I had much more force than what his foot just laying there was going to do. It threw it out from underneath him. And that caused me to get no distance, and I went straight down. I said, crap. Oh yeah, but take it as a lesson, learn from it. But yeah, like I said, but I was very, very fortunate. I get it. I'm fortunate to be walking, breathing, and I get it. And still to this day, I don't think I take it fully serious, because I expected professional wrestling, I might get hurt one day. I get it. It is what it is. I could linger on it. But no, the only thing that ever really scared me, the only thing, was having to see the expression that my wife put on her face, to see the emotion she went through. That made me feel guilty. And I mean complete guilt. And guilt's the worst thing to me. I'm bad with guilt. I hate guilt. So I knew right then and there I was no longer a lone wolf. I had to be smarter. And that's when Rocky started to bring the high flying down more. And I only swantoned into the ring. On special occasions, I would swanton from a ladder, but only inside the ring. I wouldn't go diving to the outside. I had to know I was going to be 100% in control. You could always go wrong, but I had to be in control. Nobody else had to have a potential influence on what was going to take place. As long as I was going to do the move and execute it, and no one else could affect it, okay, we will do it. Sorry?
So I'm telling you, that's a miracle that you didn't break your neck.
Very much so, yes.
What'd you say, 3 feet of the ring?
Yep.
12 foot of the ladder,
and then,
5.5 feet of you. So that's...
And then factor another foot or two for the push-off, too.
That's 22 feet
Yeah.
on the tile-covered concrete.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No. Oh, I definitely know it. But, you know...
That's a good hard head.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Most certainly so. But, you know, I always say, looking back at it now, it made a heck of a story for the book. Yeah, because the book... Again, Luscious, the story of four-time NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Rocky Reynolds, available right now on AmazonBooks.com. It became the crux of the entire book. The book starts out, I leave the readers vague. The very first chapter you read is I'm waking up in the hospital. I don't know where I am, and I don't say what I did. But things start coming back to me. I'm in my wrestling gear. I remember certain things. My wife's crying. And then I don't reveal. All I say, is that what I didn't realize at this time is that I shouldn't be here. I should be dead. And then I started into the book when I was a child. But then later on, as you get towards the end and that match comes up, then we go back and revisit that opening paragraph, and it all becomes clear to the reader what I was talking about at the start. Yeah.